Hollywood used to shine with big smiles and stars everyone loved. But Paul Newman knew the real stuff going on behind the scenes. He saw moms who scared their own kids badly, huge stars who tricked young girls into private rooms, and big actors on set who hit others hard enough to make them bleed. These were not just parts in movies. They were real bad things that Hollywood hid for many years. And the names Newman talked about were some of the most loved stars in the business. And one last name is scary enough to change what you thought you knew. Let's look at the list Paul Newman tried to warn people in Hollywood about. Number 1, Joan Crawford. Behind Joan Crawford's pretty looks was a mom whose mean ways scared everyone who knew the real story. Paul Newman once talked about her in a 1979 interview with the New York Times, sitting back in his chair as he said softly, "Never believe an Oscar can hide the darkness in a family." Joan Crawford is the best example. Hollywood loved her. In 1946, she took her Oscar for Mildred Pierce in a bright white dress as everyone cheered her big return. But hours later in her big house in Brentwood, the happy time turned scary. A maid later said that Crawford pulled her 11-year-old daughter Christina out of bed, made her sing the national anthem, and hit her so hard the noise went through the house. Christina later called her growing up years a fancy prison. Wire clothes hangers were used to punish her. Ashtrays were used as weapons, and long sleeves in hot July covered marks no one could see. Even mean words became normal. An hourglass in her room made her kneel in front of a cross, and punishments got worse for tiny mistakes. The big difference made it even worse. Hollywood called her the perfect mom, even putting her on magazine covers. But people who saw it remembered Christina getting hit just minutes before, then smiling for pictures. Crawford's mean ways did not stop when she died. When her will was read in 1977, everyone stopped at the part that left out Christina and Christopher completely, for reasons which they well know. It was, as one lawyer said quietly, the only time I saw a mother get revenge after death. Number 2, Bing Crosby. If Joan Crawford scared people with control and hitting, the next name Paul Newman said caused fear for a whole different reason. That name was Bing Crosby. To everyone, Crosby was the nice voice of White Christmas. The man Life magazine called the perfect father, and NBC proudly named America's model dad. But Newman saw something darker. In a 1982 Esquire interview, he said softly, "They call him the King of Christmas. To me, he was a jailer dressed as an angel." Behind the walls of Crosby's big home in Hills, his kids lived in constant fear. His oldest son, Gary, later wrote that he would hide in a corner at night, holding a pillow tight to his chest, waiting for the sound of his father's belt. On Larry King Live, Gary cried as he said, "He never hugged me, only looked cold as he swung." The hurt went through the whole family. Lindsey Crosby spent years in doctor care for his mind, not able to hear Christmas songs without shaking. Dennis Crosby left a sad note before ending his life in 1989, writing, "Every Christmas, the bad dream comes back. I'm too tired." Lindsey ended his own life a year later. Others near Crosby saw the same rough ways. A man who played music on tour told the Los Angeles Times he once heard yelling, "A crack, a child's cry, then quiet." Speaking up, he said, would have ended anyone's job. Some tried to say Crosby acted that way because of his own hard childhood, but Newman said no to that. At a 1985 talk, he said, "Don't blame his childhood. He beat his kids because he liked the power." The worst part was how quiet the business stayed. Studios needed Crosby's nice family image, and no one wanted to break it. The truth stayed hidden under the song White Christmas. Number 3, Errol Flynn. In the late 1930s, when The Adventures of Robin Hood came out, Errol Flynn became a huge hit overnight. People loved his fun charm, and Photoplay called him the man every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But behind the great image, Hollywood talked in whispers, stories that followed him from fancy areas to busy streets. Everything blew up in 1942 when Flynn was charged with hurting two young girls who were not old enough. The Los Angeles Examiner put the story on the front page, calling it Robin Hood in court. People who spoke in court talked about wild parties in a fancy apartment, and one said Flynn came in like a king, with young faces too little to know about such fancy things. The court was full of reporters and fans. Flynn was found not guilty in the end, but as he left, he lit a cigarette and smiled. The ladies will still love this Robin Hood. Paul Newman later said he had never seen someone so proud of bad things. Hollywood was happy with the decision, but people inside knew strong studios and nice report. Urs had helped protect him. The stories just got more. Reporter Sheila Graham wrote in 1945 that if Flynn's big house walls could talk, Hollywood would not want to hear. Stories went around about long parties, young guests, and a place where no one could say no to him. One worker even said Flynn made guests sing when he wanted and stopped working with anyone who said no. Though not proven, it made his name scary. Flynn's death in 1959 only made the mystery bigger. At 50, he died in Vancouver. His body so worn out, the doctor said it looked like a much older man. The New York Post had the headline, "Rowdy Robin Hood Dead, Leaves Behind Movies and Secrets." What bothered many was how Hollywood remembered him. Even with the talks and dark stories, the business kept the hero story and hid the bad parts. Number 4, Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney's name still had the glow of a cute American kid, but Elizabeth Taylor remembered something very different. In 1974, in a private talk, she cried remembering her early years at MGM. Paul Newman later told Vanity Fair that she said quietly, "You don't understand. Mickey Rooney scared me more than anyone." It was then Newman saw that Hollywood's loved boy had a much darker side. During the 1930s and 40s, Rooney was MGM's top money maker. The Andy Hardy movies made him a sign of pure fun, even putting him on the cover of Life as the little star with the biggest smile. But behind the camera, workers talked about sudden angry fits and a bad temper that could get rough fast. What hurt Elizabeth Taylor most was what happened when she was only 14. After National Velvet made her big, Rooney, almost 25 and already a top star, started going after her. A friend from school later said Taylor wore big sweaters in hot weather to hide from his looks, once saying quietly, "I just want to get out of here." Her notes from that time talked about no sleep and feeling stuck in MGM's pretty trap. Hollywood kept Rooney safe. Hedda Hopper tried to talk about his ways once, but MGM made her take it back in a day. People who wrote stories were told never to print anything bad about his image. Taylor kept the hurt into grown-up years. Friends said she got quiet when his name came up. Rooney's own life was messy too, married 8 times, mean to younger actresses, and spent all his money until almost broke. People inside said he was just getting back what he gave. By the end of his life, he needed help from law to stay safe from his own family. When Newman was asked about him at a news talk in 1982, he said softly, "Hollywood has smiles that hide darkness." Mickey Rooney was the clearest proof. To everyone, he was a fun star. To Elizabeth Taylor and others, he was a dark memory they never forgot. Number 5, Bette Davis. Bette Davis was known for her strong acting and strong look, but people who worked with her often saw something very different. All About Eve made her a star, and people who reviewed movies loved her sharp words. But off camera, she had a name for scaring others on set and workers. Her bad temper was well known. A makeup person at Warner Brothers remembered times when she could be nice to reporters one moment, then yell at a small actor the next for standing a bit wrong. People stopped moving when she talked. Some left the set crying. The bad feelings got worse on Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962, where her fight with Joan Crawford made the movie set what Variety called a war zone. In one part, Davis pushed Crawford so hard she went to the hospital. Asked about it later, Davis just said, "If she got hurt, that's her problem." Crawford got back by putting heavy metal under her clothes, making Davis hurt her back in a pulling part. She acted the same to others. On the private lives of Elizabeth and Essex, she hit Errol Flynn so hard the mark stayed for minutes. Another actor said he quit acting after Davis hit him with a script for missing a line. Even workers feared hearing her shoes in the hall, a sign to get ready for trouble. Paul Newman, who saw her make a young actress feel bad in front of everyone, later said, "No one denies Bette's talent, but I've never seen a woman cause so much fear on a set." Number 6, Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich went through Hollywood like a strong wind, amazing, exciting, and dangerous to anyone near her. At a fancy party in Beverly Hills in 1955, she came in wearing a black man's suit with a cigarette holder, and the room got quiet. One reporter later said it felt like she came to pick who she wanted. Dietrich was much more than the star of the Blue Angel. She used charm like a plan, turning every love into a power game. Many who loved her ended up hurt. Gene Gabin once thought she was his true love but fell sad after she left him. Writer Erich Maria Remarque lost his money as she spent it on fancy things. Women did not get away either. Stories linked Dietrich to Greta Garbo, who hid more after. Mercedes de Acosta, a writer she used for friend, died poor and alone. Even Claudette Colbert paid for going against her with years of bad talk. Some stories were darker. Edith Piaf, after time with Dietrich, got bad with drink and pills, friends remembering her falling on stage from sad heart. And in Hollywood, a young actress who quit her job to go with Dietrich later ended her life, leaving a note with just 3 words: "I hate you." Dietrich's own daughter, Maria Riva, wrote that growing up with her meant seeing people used like things, thrown away when not useful. Many thought Dietrich's need for control started in her young days in Germany, where she learned charm and tricks could get anything. Love to her was never about giving, only winning. Paul Newman, who stayed away from her pull, said it best. Marlene treated feelings like cards in a game. She played better than anyone, but behind her all you saw were people who lost. Number 7, Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas was known as the true Hollywood strong man, the brave hero of Spartacus. But away from movies, he had a name that scared Hollywood for years. While Bing Crosby scared his family, Douglas shook the business with ongoing stories about going after very young girls, especially under 20. Talks about him started in the 1950s, but were quietly hidden by studios who made too much money from him. The worst story was about Natalie Wood. In 1954, at just 15, she was taken by her mom to the Chateau Marmont for what was called a teaching meeting with Douglas. According to her sister Lana's book, the teen came back hours later upset and crying. In her notes, she wrote, "I must stay quiet if I want to keep acting, but I feel dirty." Hollywood kept the story hidden for years, even after Wood's strange drowning in 1981. Hints came up but were pushed away fast. She was not the only one. Old studio workers remembered Douglas often asking very young girls to his room and getting mad at those who said no. Even with the stories, Douglas kept getting praised. He got the Medal of Freedom in 1996 and a special Oscar in 2004. While he gave emotional talks about helping young people, many actresses watching looked uneasy. Paul Newman later said in a 60 Minutes interview, "Spartacus may have been a hero, but Kirk Douglas was never a hero." Not to the young girls he hunted. Number 8, Gloria Swanson. In the 1920s, Gloria Swanson was the queen of silent movies in Hollywood. She walked red carpets in shiny dresses and fur, acting like real royalty. Photoplay once wrote that she didn't just act, she made her whole life a show. But behind the fancy, that show became a trap for everyone near her. In 1928, she starred in Queen Kelly, a big movie directed by Erich von Stroheim. What started as a great idea turned into mess fast. Swanson wanted new clothes because the colors did not look good on her eyes and told them to build whole sets again to help her act better. Workers later remembered hundreds of people tired out as money went too high. Stroheim got fired, the movie stopped, and Queen Kelly became one of Hollywood's worst-known fails. Off-camera, Swanson lived the same big way during the Great Depression when many people had no food. She rode in cars covered in gold and bought jewels every week. Reporters wrote sadly that while people asked for food, she paid for fancy gloves with jewels. Her big pride kept her alone. As movies with sound came, other silent stars changed. But Swanson would not believe her time was over. When her movies did not work, she blamed directors, studios, and even people watching who she said were not smart enough for her great work. Reviewers started calling her a proud wrecker. Paul Newman later said, "Hollywood never forgives those who make whole teams suffer for their pride, and Swanson became the best example." In her later years, she lived with mirrors, dresses, and jewels, but not many people. Her return in Sunset Boulevard in 1950, playing a crazy old star, felt too real to people watching. In the end, Swanson's great light burned out, taking jobs, workers, and money with it. Number 9. Sal Mineo. Sal Mineo, the young star of Rebel Without a Cause in 1955, was once thought to be the next James Dean. But being open about liking boys cost him a lot. Hollywood turned away, the good parts went away, and papers made fun of him for what the New York Times later called honesty that got punished. In public, Mineo was with stage actor Courtney Burr III. In private, some said he had a hard and secret link with Paul Newman. A story made bigger by people seeing Newman go to Mineo's place late at night. One bar worker remembered seeing Mineo nervously light a cigarette while Newman put a hand on his shoulder. After Mineo's death, a notebook said to be his had a sad line. "I love Courtney, but Newman is my greatest fear. If the truth comes out, I'll pay the price." People still argue if the notebook was real. On February 12, 1976, Mineo was stabbed to death outside his home in West Hollywood. Police fast caught a man with no home and called it a steel try, but the case had many wrong things: lost proof, different stories from people who saw, and a say yes many thought was forced. More talk started when Mineo's place was found messed up later, and some papers gone. A person who ran the building even said someone like Newman was seen going in, though this was never checked true. Around the same time, money papers that leaked talked about strange moves linked to a fund with Newman's name, making more wild stories. The FBI later closed parts of the case papers, a choice that made more stories instead of stopping them. When Paul Newman was finally asked about Mineo's death, he just said, "Hollywood killed Sal not with a knife but with silence." To some, it sounded like saying bad things about the business. To others, it sounded like something much more personal. Sal Mineo died at just 37, stuck between the life he lived open, the love he kept secret, and a bunch of questions with no answers that stayed after he was gone. Number 10. Wallace Beery. In the 1930s, Wallace Beery was one of MGM's biggest stars. People loved his rough but kind acting, especially in The Champ, which got him an Oscar. Variety even said he had a heart of gold under a hard outside. But behind that image, Hollywood talked quietly about a very different man. Beery's name got linked to the strange 1937 death of Ted Healy, who started the Three Stooges. People who saw said a big man like Beery was seen fighting with Healy outside the Trocadero Club the same night Healy was found hurt bad in his hotel room. Just 3 days after, MGM suddenly sent Beery to Europe, a move many thought was odd. Though police said the death was from drink, reporters then thought strong studio people might have helped hide the case. Stories about Beery's bad temper went past that night. Old child actors later said he slapped, threw, or handled kids rough on set. Mickey Rooney once said Beery hit him so hard he fell down. Other workers remembered extra actors moving away when the actor came near. His own life had the same dark. Gloria Swanson wrote in her book that Beery had been rough in their marriage, making her get divorced fast as she could. When Paul Newman was asked about Beery in a 1981 interview, He said Hollywood had known the stories for long, but liked to protect a star who made money instead of facing hard truths. On screen, Beery played kind dads and fun bad guys. Off-screen, to those who knew him and those who feared him, he left marks of blame, quiet, and one of the scariest unknown things of Hollywood's best years. And there you have it. These stories show us that Hollywood's bright light often hid much darker things than any parts these stars played on screen. Paul Newman didn't just say names. He showed a system that kept fame safe no matter what, even when the truth was too hard. But what about you? After hearing these stories, which name shocked you the most? And do you think these stars should still be celebrated today? Share your thoughts in the comments to let us know. See you then.